Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Well, welcome everybody to the Must Read Alaska show. I'm your host, John Quick, coming to you live from somewhere in Alaska. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. We are out of Facebook jail, which is awesome, and we're back to the Facebook Lives during the Must Read Alaska show. So we are very excited about that. We want to thank everybody that listens, watches, or reads Must Read Alaska. We have just had a phenomenal year this year. We're going to reach probably around 100 million people reached through social media just this year, 2022, which is a significant increase. Last year, I think we reached around 20 million. This year, 100 million, which is just huge for us. We're up to about 1.2 million page views a month on our website. And, you know, things are just going well for us. So we want to thank you to everybody that helps contribute to those numbers. Lots of folks in the lower 48 and even different countries tune in. So we're pretty excited about that. If you want to help keep the lights on with Must Read Alaska, we're not funded by some shady George Soros nonprofit conglomerate. We're funded by everyday folks that live in Alaska, folks that believe in what we're doing, believe in conservative news, and donate $100 at a time or $5 at a time. Every dollar helps. And so we just want to encourage you that if you consume our content, we have no paywalls, everything's free. And if you enjoy it, make sure to give us a donate button if you're willing and able. So without further ado, I want to welcome Senator Shelley Hughes to the Must Read Alaska show. Welcome, Senator Shelley Hughes.
Thank you. And I want to say congratulations on such a successful year. You said 100 million. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. And I will tell you, I appreciate the fact that you don't have a paywall because, there have been a few articles here and there with my name in them recently. And I'll click to go read them and I can't get in unless I subscribe. So not having a paywall is actually a great way to get the word out. So thank you. And yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. And Senator, I want to tell you that the messages that I've been hearing, the social media chatter that I've been seeing in the last couple of days are conservatives in Alaska are very appreciative towards you and Mike and Senator Shower and Senator Meyer for having some integrity and actually caucusing with folks that you represent. And so I think, sometimes that can be lost in transition as you are having these meetings and you're maybe the people that are negative or sometimes louder than the people that are positive. But I would say overwhelmingly what I've seen as I talk to people and friends that are, know a thing or two about politics and they're super voters, they are very appreciative that you ran on one thing and you're doing exactly what you said you would do, and you did not allow for the Democrats to have the majority. So you didn't go caucus with them, which are, I think is easier said than done. But I appreciate you doing that. So I just wanted to say that. But also the question to you is this: pretend as if people have been living under a rock and they don't know what's happening. Give us the rundown on exactly what's happened over the last week. How did it start? Where did we end up? Walk us through that story.
Sure. Happy to do that, John. Well, if they peeked out of the rock, your audience would know there was ranked choice voting, and we knew that might change the makeup of the Senate. Even over the summer, began having conversations with my Republican colleagues about different policies that we could coalesce around, because for 7 years, the PFD has been a point of contention and has created a divide among Republicans. And so began to have those conversations, things that to my various Republican colleagues that are now in the bipartisan coalition, things that they've been excited about that actually are good policies, and trying to find something we could coalesce around. Well, on November 8th, as the results were coming in, and actually I'll back up. Before that, we knew that there were 5 seats essentially that were would be important to win if a Republican caucus were to tip a little more to the right. We didn't win those 5 seats, so we knew the likelihood of a bipartisan coalition was obviously much greater. So picked up the conversation, reached out by text, left phone call, voicemails, and emails with a proposal that we felt was reasonable. It was actually somewhat similar to how Mike Chenault for years led a very diverse House majority, and made a proposal of how we could be sure to pass a budget. So it was a very reasonable, viable proposal, knowing that it would not be a far right, but it'd be a rather, Republican caucus. It'd be right of center, but not a far right caucus. So very reasonable, not proposing draconian cuts, following actually the recommendation that Senator-elect Kaufman had in a bill, in a resolution, how to keep the operating budget under control. And also with the caveat that the PFD would be voted in a separate budget bill, because that was part of the recognition as the results rolled in November 8th and the days following, based on who is going to serve. When I looked at the count, started counting noses, there's 20 people in the Senate, right? There, in the past, over the last 7 years, we have tipped anywhere from 10 to 11 on one side or the other of the PFD, and depending who was in the room or what mood somebody was in on that particular day, sometimes we had the votes for following the law, and sometimes we didn't. Sometimes we had to vote for a larger PFD, and sometimes we had one significantly reduced. But it was kind of split down the middle. Well, looking at those results coming in November 8th, it was clear there were probably 13, 14 votes for a reduced PFD. So recognizing that, I thought, okay, we already know there's going to be a reduced PFD. So that issue is a foregone conclusion. We don't need to be fighting over that. We don't need to have any power play over that. We just know that's what is going to be as a group of Republicans. So let's go from there, pick 2 or 3 policy priorities, set the budget up. And the way, like I said, the James Kaufman idea is you set a target amount and you come into the majority with that amount in mind, and you stick with that. And then you've got your votes, and you put the PFD in a separate bill. So very, very reasonable, viable plan. The problem, John, was that as we put it out there, we were not getting any responses. People were not replying. There was no interest in having a conversation. And then right shortly before the bipartisan coalition announced, I did get a call basically that they were not interested, and were not even interested in coming into a room to have a conversation, no interested in joining together for a dialogue.
So they never even heard you out in person to kind of work through some of this proposal. They just read an email and said, thanks, but no thanks.
Yes. And I was leaving voicemails explaining it. And I did have a couple conversations with some of them, but even when I'd have conversation, there was never any engagement like, gee, maybe that would work. It would just be listen and then change the subject to something else. So I felt like it was an alternative that actually would have been quite successful. But here's the real kicker, John. When we looked at the numbers, first of all, numerically, it was a majority, 11 people with R's after their name, 9 with D's. But numerically, when you look at the votes, when we looked, it actually the first choice votes, but it actually went up once they did the elimination process. So it even went up even more, but it was more than 65% of the people who voted cast their vote for a Republican to represent them in the state Senate. So when 65% of the voters are speaking that, I think that we should respect that. And really, it's troubling to me. It's an arrogance too, that if we think we can defy the voters, when 65% say we want a Republican, they are indicating they want a right of center majority. Now, they're not indicating they want a far right majority, but right of center.
Mhm.
And that's what our proposal was. And I believe that would have been the proper way, the appropriate thing to do as far as respecting the wishes of the voters.
So it looks like the majority or a lot of the committee chairs have went to Democrats. A lot of folks, including myself, sometimes don't understand or realize why committee chairs are so important. Talk to us a little bit about why it's important, for conservatives, why it would be important to get Republicans in those committee chair roles. And a lot of folks think, well, just get stuff done anyways. I don't understand why you just don't get stuff done, where all these little intricate pieces have to line up for conservative ideas to get put forward and bills to be passed. Why are these chairs so important?
They're the gatekeeper for the bills. They decide what gets heard and what moves out, pretty much, and what amendments can come forward, and just that whole process. So there's a lot of power and control involved in who is the chair. So I want to rewind just a second back to the organization conversation as well, because it's kind of funny, because the reasons given were that we had not voted for this year's budget. Well, the truth of the matter is that Senator Shower, Senator Myers, and I had all voted yes on all of the budget votes this year. The interesting thing, there were some of the people that are now in the majority, bipartisan majority, who did not vote for all the key budget votes, including Senator Stedman, Senator Bishop, Senator Hoffman, and then some who are no longer in serving, such as Senator von Imhoff and Senator Rivak. So it's kind of funny. The reason they gave, actually, some of their own members didn't vote. It is true that there are some prior key budget votes that the three of us did not vote for, but there were also, Senator Hoffman would be in that group as well, as far as prior years. So that reason kind of falls flat. The other reason is that we don't work well with others. Well, we actually have a great track record of getting things through. We actually had some great achievements this year working actually with other Republicans and across the aisle. For instance, we were able to get Mayor Bronson some money for the Port of Anchorage, and very important for the Port of Nome, national security, and some money for roads in the fastest growing area of the state, my area. So those were one of many examples. We worked to get the sexual assault crime bill through, working with members and leading that. So, and when you think about it too, the repeal of SB 91 was actually led by the conservatives. I was chair of the judiciary at the time, and Senator Shower was on the committee, and Senator Reinbold was quite the spokesperson. Senator Costello was the spokesperson on the floor. So many of these things, and the reading bill also, the read by 9 bill was something that Tom Begich and I worked together and brought Senator Holland to understand the importance of that bill. And we were able to win over Senator Machicki and Senator Gary Stevens on that committee, and it became something that we got through. So the fact that we don't work well with others is false. It's a nice soundbite for them, but it's just not true.
Yeah. So what does this mean for the three of you? Obviously you're still going to be working on stuff, but how does this change the dynamics of, you're the Senate Majority Leader right now, to now you're going to be in the, minority, the three of you trying to get some stuff done. What does this look like for you this year?
That's a nice way. That's a nice way to say we got kicked to the curb. So, we will not have the ability to have much say in how things run through, but we will be a voice for Alaskans, and we will stand up for the things that are important for Alaska's future, for strong families, for strong communities, and strong economy. We will work where we can. If there's an amendment or something that we maybe can win some votes on, we will definitely try that kind of thing, but we will pretty much be the voice. And then also we will point out where we think they might be going off track so that Alaskans will be aware. And really, that's the minority doesn't have a lot of power, but they have a voice. And so that will be our big role. And, we'll see what happens over in the House. And of course, we have been really supportive of the governor these past 4 years, and we don't plan to let up with that. As he aligns with the Republican platform and our conservative principles, we will be right there to do whatever we can. We had hoped that a few might break away and be part of a minority, an official recognized minority. When you hit the magic number of 5 in the Senate as a minority, then you're officially recognized and you get seats on the committees, you get a seat at the finance table, and you get press secretary. You just have more resources at hand. And so we had hoped a few of them from red districts, such as Senator David Wilson and James Kaufman. I think he won by 15%. And Senator-elect Jesse Bjorkman, of course, is from a very red district. We had hoped that they would band together with us, and we felt like that would have been great leverage with our Republican governor. But even with 3, working with the governor, we hope to be helpful however we can. And if the bipartisan coalition, if they've got something that's good, we're not going to fight everything. If there's something good for Alaska, we'll get behind it. But what I'm picking up on, if you listen to their press conference, it sounds like they're looking at increasing education funding.
Oh, yeah.
Well, where's the accountability piece with that? If we're going to increase funding, we need accountability because we want results, and the results are pretty pathetic, sadly, right now. Will the PERS to retirement defined benefits, will that come back up? When I count the noses, I think there are the votes for it. Yeah.
I think we'll see the defined benefits come back. We'll see increase in educational funding, and we'll see probably one of the biggest bloated budgets if you don't factor in capital expenses that Alaska's seeing in a
right.
while.
And to pay for that, and I didn't look at the oil prices this morning, but they've been hovering, once they get down under $90 a barrel, down to $87 a barrel, we've got a problem. And so when you're talking about increasing funding, where are they going to get it? They're going to get it from the PFD. I think a lot of people are guessing the PFD is in tremendous jeopardy, and I'd have to agree.
Oh, yeah. And I think that in particular, Senator Wilson and Senator Bjorkman are going to come home to town hall meetings where 90% of the people at those meetings are going to be extremely aggravated at them letting the Democrats have control, in effect, in a binding caucus where their now conservative voice is no longer heard. So kudos to you, Shower Myers, for being in the minority, to still having a voice, for not having to be a part of something that it doesn't represent not only the folks that live in your area, but also live in Alaska. So what do you think this means for Alaska? Do you think that Alaska is turning purple or more blue, or do you think this is just a speed bump in a situation where we'll get back on track in the next year or so?
So I think ranked choice voting turned the legislature, it's leaning towards purple for sure. Now the makeup of the people, I have been concerned when you have about a third of our population, John, on Medicaid, and that goes back to Walker expanding Medicaid to able-bodied working age adults, which actually jeopardizes the truly vulnerable who need it. And we already hear stories of that. When you have 1/3 of the population dependent on that, I think, and when with Biden's policies that have crippled our resource development industry, so you lose private sector jobs and you have more people dependent on government, that has changed the demographics. However, I think I'm not going to give up hope, because Alaska is a great place to live. It was a blessing to my family, place of opportunity. I've told people, and I think maybe on your show, I was under the poverty level with small children. And, this was a great place where you can just live the American dream, right? And I want that to continue. And I think that there's a silent majority that if they were to awaken, I think there are a lot of good people busy with their lives that didn't vote. What was the voter turnout? Somewhere around 40%. I was that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I knew in my gut, if we weren't up closer to the turnout that you typically see in a presidential election year, that we might have this problem, that things would not go so well on the ballot if we didn't have a higher turnout. Is exactly what happened. So, yes, I think the Democrats have shifted some due to the factors of pressure from the Biden administration to what Walker did. But I still think that if we really were to get everybody to the polls and that understood what was at stake, I think we wouldn't need to be turning blue.
So last question to this, Senator, what's an effective way? Let's say there's listeners that are going to listen to this and they live in these districts where these Republicans have now given the control over to the Democrats and have silenced the conservative vote. What's an effective way for them to state their case to these elected officials in their district who they think, are not representing them anymore? Maybe is it phone calls? Is it emails? Is it town halls? What's a good way for folks that are maybe feeling disenfranchised right now because they live in the Valley or they live on the Kenai Borough, in the Kenai Peninsula Borough, and they're thinking, well, crap, I guess I got to wait 4 more years. Is there something they can do now?
Yeah. Well, some of the seats half of them are 2 year and half of them are 4 years. So just because the senator's in for 4, some of them are 2. And I think everything you listed was right. I think calling into the talk shows as well and social media and all of that, and just politely, respectfully urging their senators to, it's actually technically it's not too late. The Committee on Committees, the gaveling in and the swearing in of the Senate president has not happened. I mean, technically I know there are some people still trying to urge some of those that have joined to poll. And, if one person were to poll, things could unravel. Now, do I think that's going to happen? I kind of don't think it is. But, if I lived in one of these areas, I would be urging my senator or senator-elect to reconsider and respect the voters. Defying voters is, like I said, it's a very arrogant thing to do. And not to mention it's just not good for Alaska as far as our economy and what we have to work with. In fact, what I heard that the part of the bipartisan priorities is to help strengthen the economy and because of inflation and everything. But what they're talking about doing is pumping more money into government. Increase spending, that actually complicates it, does the opposite of what they're trying to do. So,
their version of fixing the economy and our version of fixing the economy look a little bit different.
Exactly.
So, Senator, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I want to encourage you and the other 2 senators to, hold your head up high. And we were very fortunate to have you 3 standing up for integrity, standing up for the things that you campaigned on. And I know it's hard and tough to be in the minority, but we are blessed to have you there because it's something that I think is, needed to keep that checks and balance to the Senate. Somebody's got to be looking over the shoulder and saying, I don't think I like that. And then informing the conservatives on what's actually happening. And at least we got 3 of you out there that are going to be doing that. So I appreciate that. Do you have any last minute things you want to say before we head off here?
Yeah, I do, because if we go back to the beginning, we talked of the reasons given why we weren't included was that we don't work well and we didn't vote for budgets. But I kind of disproved that by saying actually some of them didn't vote for budgets and we actually have been very successful working well. So then why was it set up without the 3 of us in it? And it is because of the PFD, and people need to understand that is why that policy disagreement is why, which is actually kind of unnecessary knowing that they had the 14 votes, but that's what it stems from. And that is what is at stake. So we will see how that progresses. But I want to say in closing, John, my hashtag, I don't know when I started it, was hashtag telling it like it is. I will continue to keep folks informed. I know we all do. Senator Myers and Senator Shower each do Facebook Lives. I will be doing that. I think I'm going to be doing those on Monday nights, probably. If we keep that pattern of the last couple of years, we'll see. We have a legislative town hall actually this coming Monday at 6 o'clock on the Palmer-Wasilla Highway. We're using the Real Life Church because they have Zoom capability and a larger space than the Legislative Information Office. And so that'll be an opportunity. And then I am planning to have a coffee chat, and it is a week from Saturday. What would that date be? Let me say real quick, it would be the 10th. So December 10th. I will be having a coffee chat, so stay tuned. Love to hear from and have conversations. Town halls will be listening to what the constituents have to say. A coffee chat is a little different because we listen, but we converse, and it's more of a discussion. So there you have it.
If folks that live in your district have a question, do you have the office number off the top of your head or an email that you can throw out? Somebody lives in your district and they're like, this highway's bugging me, or just the normal stuff that people are curious or wonder about. What's a good contact for
and
your
they
office?
can Google and it'll pop up, but it's 907, his office number is 907-376-3725, 376-3725. And then all the senators' emails, you write senator dot and then first name dot last name at akleg.gov. So I'm Senator.Shelley with an EY.Hughes, Hughes at akleg.gov.
Awesome. Well, I wish you nothing but success this year, Senator. Thank you so much for coming on the Must Read Alaska show. And folks that listen to our podcast, maybe on iHeartRadio or Pandora or Spotify or iTunes, and you enjoy the content, make sure to give us a review there, 5-star review. We'd love one. And it only takes about 2 seconds to do that. And we appreciate every single one of those. We've got about 700 5-star reviews. And so we're very appreciative to all those folks that do that. And we want to remind folks that I'm going to be on the show, let's see here, Thursday with a very cool guest. I have a guest from New York City that has one of the top true crime podcasts in the entire US. And he's going to be on the show. He writes for the New York Post and has his very own XM channel as well. But it's always fun to switch it up and have some pop culture stuff. So that'll be fun on Thursday. And we hope everybody has a great week. Until next time, I'm John Quick from somewhere in Alaska. Thanks.
And Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Thanks.